Have you seen a book made from a spirit? Have you seen a book made from an angel? Have you seen a book made from the devil? No, you have not. But if you read Nostradamus, you will understand why the Bible is real. Because everything that Nostradamus says predicted, he was a prophet. Everything that man predicted has came to pass. Two of the Antichrists have already left here. Napoleon Bonaparte and Hitler. There's one. It is not a fictional book. If that's the case, everything in science would be fictional now, wouldn't it? Wouldn't every single godforsaken educational book be fictional? See, can't use that argument. If you're gonna say that about one book, you might say about every single book that's written by man. Every one. See, it's no different than English. Science, social studies. I could say science isn't real. I could say history isn't real. Why you think you have historians for? Why you think you have scientists for? Why you think you have biologists for? To prove these theories to be correct.
However, it seems fairly obvious, at least to me, that at a psychological level, virtue signaling is a pretty big motivation. And within the domain of collective virtue signaling, it also seems apparent that a lot of it is governed by the sorts of dynamics that sociologists and social psychologists typically study, which would include phenomena like groupthink, de-individuation, and the diffusion of responsibility, among others. Which, of course, would go a long way toward explaining why virtue signaling can take some pretty extreme and ridiculous forms when people who share a group identity start banding together in crowds. However, as I mentioned earlier, the other related form of virtue signaling isn't so much about publicly proclaiming the superiority of our own moral values, but about putting down people who don't necessarily or immediately agree with them. Basically, people we want to regard as adversaries or enemies somehow. I'm going to call that type of virtue signaling derogatory virtue signaling, and I'd say that a lot of it operates according to the logic of that great time-honored mainstay of the kindergarten playground, name calling. Or, as we like to say in the more rarefied atmosphere of higher education, the ad hominem fallacy. Of course, one obvious place to notice derogatory virtue signaling is in the political sphere and in people's everyday conversations about it, where these days it seems like we're all ceaselessly trying to lay claim to some sort of quasi-moral superiority by insulting our perceived opponents. For instance, that's why so many of us on the political right are eager to label our supposed enemies as snowflakes and cucks, which is really just an indirect way of virtue signaling that I myself am the opposite of snowflakes and cucks. Damn it! And on the other side of the political divide, it's why so many of us on the left are quick to invoke the hyperbolic language of fascism, Nazism, racism, and misogyny, which is an indirect way of signaling that I myself am the exact opposite of fascists, racists, misogynists, homophobes, etc. But no matter where it occurs on the political spectrum, derogatory virtue signaling is basically about implicitly puffing ourselves up by putting other people down.